to build the pressure of public opinion to make education as the number one item on national agenda. I, Bhavin Shah, is going to present you candid, uncut. What do you want to know? How things happen in education at my show, which is EducationWorld Edu-Unplugged. Welcome to EducationWorld's Edu-Unplugged. Here we have Shri Shishir Jaipuria, chairman of Seth Anandram Jaipuria group of schools, having more than 75 years of education experience.
Thank you, Bhavin, for inviting me, and I'm absolutely ready.
So, sir, what's your vision and philosophy of education?
Well, as you mentioned, our journey into education started in 1945, which is now 77 years. We started with a college in Calcutta, which is known as the Jaipuria College, and subsequently when our family moved to Kanpur, then we started a holistic school by the name of Seth Anandram Jaipuria School at Kanpur. Now, the vision of the promoter, that was my grandfather, was to bring in Indian ethos, culture within the system. Because most of the schools which were there at that length of time were more of missionary schools. And the focus was how to bring the culture, how to bring the tradition and values which represents the Indian society at that length of time.
Like a holistic education at the heart.
It was more focused on holistic education and also on building and living the dream of India, because my grandfather was a patriotic.
Wow.
He always believed that if India has to grow, you have to have the right people, so good quality education will be something which is a must.
No, fabulous, sir, and we always look upon what Seth Anandram Jaipuria does, and that's a fabulous service that you're doing for human development and a nation-serving cause.
One more thing I would like to add, like we have this logo in which we have a tagline: empower, enthuse, and excel. So we ensure that the people that we engage with, whether it is our teachers, our students, and the whole ecosystem, is empowered in the whole process. And they should be excited, they should be enthused, and subsequently, they should excel in every field. Academics is important for us, but apart from academics, various other things that are required in the new type of learning, and more so in the 21st century, whether it is sport, art, craft, culture, everything should be where people get an opportunity or platform to excel.
We look upon your E3 or your E-Cube vision, fabulously impressed with it.
In the last couple of years, we started reimagining education. And we thought that it is better to reflect upon our vision. So 4 or 5 predominant things that we try to bring in within our vision statement is that the school has to nurture children which are happy.
Got it.
They have to become confident children. Lifelong learning is something which is very important in today's age, and that is one of the areas which we want to focus upon. And then the important aspect is that they should be sensitive towards the environment.
Which is the need of an hour.
Promote global citizenship. So essentially, they should become, I would say, change agents, because a lot of changes are happening globally, and they should be a facilitator for the change that is required today. Apart from the strength that we have always talked about in terms of academic rigor, but we have given a much more holistic approach to our vision.
So holistic approach, leading where the kids are going to be self, they are going to be change makers, and obviously the core philosophy which involves taking care of the environment, empowering them, making them more enthusiastic toward pursuing their goals is the core vision of it. This is impressive, sir.
Thank you, Bhavin.
In this 21st century, do you think the kind of education that kids are going through, are they prepared for the 21st century?
My direct answer to the question is no, because I feel that a lot has changed and our education system is still very much adaptive to the first and second generation of the education world. We are not trying to understand how the world has changed, how the systems in terms of technologies have changed, and the industrial 4.0, the types of skill sets that will be required, and the future of work will be completely different. So first of all, to begin with, we'll have to understand our learners. Most of the learners that we have are basically people who are either from Generation Z, who have been born between 1995 to 2009, or the Generation Alpha, as we call them, who are born after 2010. And all these young children have been born with internet, with smartphones, with all types of devices. They have been given so many choices, and the expectations in terms of what they want to learn and how they want to learn is very different. So we have to understand what are the requirements in terms of skills of the 21st century learner.
Sir, also, do you think there is also mindset which needs to change? I think so. All the stakeholders that are educators and largely parents, mindset has not yet changed. What's your comment on it?
Well, I feel that is the moot point, and COVID-19 at least brought in some mindset change. We were thinking that digitalization, which was required in schools, will take another 10 years.
Correct.
But fortunately, because of the pandemic, we were forced to change. And I'm happy to say that whether it is the teachers or the parents or the children, they were able to adapt to the change very fast. So mindset change is important. People have already moved into it, and I think there's no going back onto it.
Yeah, I'm sure, like with 75 years of independence and all the revolution that we see across the world, I'm hoping that the mindset shift which COVID has given the acceleration should continue. Education Institute is only known better how your teachers are. What is the role of teachers in 21st century? Can you elaborate on that?
I entirely agree, because every institution is only known because of the teachers, and the teachers are known because of the principal or the leadership that you have within the school. So the role of the teacher has been changing very drastically. Earlier it used to be rote learning and memorization of facts. Now, because of digitization and new models which have come up, teachers have to be facilitators and enablers as far as education is to be delivered. They have to understand the nuances with regard to the 21st century skills. They have to ensure that the child becomes inquisitive, he enjoys learning, he is curious to understand, and they have to facilitate the process by experimenting on different things. I also believe that the teacher should be more research oriented rather than just focusing on day-to-day activities.
That's very important. I think so. Research is not something we have been emphasizing on. So continue on that point. It's a very good point.
So as it is being said, that has to be a continuous professional development of each and every person. We have seen that whether it is players or whether it is people like us who are in the management areas, all of us require coaches. Even the teachers today requires people who can mentor them, coach them, find out where they can make better improvements so that the transaction between what they are teaching and what actually is happening in the classroom in terms of learning outcomes is being conducted in a proper manner. So one has to continuously revisit, reinvent, remodify the way they are teaching, and there's so much that one can learn that in case they go for professional learning and development, there's a huge opportunity. I would also like to mention that very recently, about 2.5 years back, we started an initiative, STAR, which is Samarth Teachers Training Academy and Research, wherein we are trying to bring in the best of pedagogical interventions, training teachers in terms of content delivery, classroom management, assessments, and that has proved to be something not only for our own teachers but through the whole ecosystem. The UP government approached us that they should train our 10,000 teachers on IT platforms because the disruption created by COVID was so huge and so fast that nobody could have imagined, and the teachers were not really equipped for this. But I'm very satisfied that this gap which was there, a vacuum which was created, we are trying to address it, and we are looking for global partnerships. We are already having onboarding with some of these institutions, but I want to scale it up in a big manner.
Now Uttar Pradesh has got 10,000 star teachers.
The only thing I wish is that teaching should become aspirational.
True.
Because the teacher's respect has to grow within the society so that we are able to attract the best talent.
By way of having now Star Teacher Academy or the training which say Anandram Jaipuria group of school has initiated, star teachers will be now preferring the star qualification rather than the least preferred qualification, which India was all about. What used to happen was this was not been preferred job. or not a preferred qualification. So it's the old saying which is still going, saying you can't become anything, you become a teacher. But I'm happy that your initiative of STAR and giving them that STAR status is really a good thing to start and a good thing for India.
The only thing is that teacher will never be replaced, but they have to be enabled and driven by technology.
So the learning environment is very important in a teacher's and the child life. What do you think that how should be the best learning environment be inculcated in a school?
Well, I think that apart from classroom teaching, there's a lot more which the schools have to do. There are a lot of learning spaces that has to be created, which a lot of schools are doing. But some of the schools will continue to invent and discover how more they can do. But 2 or 3 elements that I would like to talk about is that we have to learn from nature. Prakriti. Prakriti बहुत जरूरी है. The amount what nature can tell us, and we have seen that during COVID times, that if we are not working in harmony with nature, it can always create problems as we have seen.
हाँ, सबने सिर्फ सबक सीख लिया है.
दूसरा है हम लोग को अपनी संस्कृति या कल्चर को बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. तो उस कल्चर को इनग्रेन करने के लिए जो हम लोग को चेंजेस करने पड़ेंगे अपने एजुकेशन सिस्टम में, that becomes something which is very relevant in today's context. And our cultural system and now the way India is growing, we have seen yoga, how it has grown, how the world is going after it. We have seen various other measures which India has taken, which now globally people are practicing. Mindfulness, for that matter, is today being practiced all over the world, and now we will learn when it comes back to us.
हाँ, मतलब हम तो जो भी पहले तो हम यहाँ करते हैं, and then when the West does it, you start following that.
And तीसरा है अनुभूति. तो अनुभूति भी इतना ज़रूरी है क्योंकि हम लोग को जो एक्सपीरियंस करते हैं या जो एक्सपीरियंशियल लर्निंग है वो बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. और जो लर्निंग क्लासरूम्स हैं एसेंशियली वो एक ऐसा माहौल होना चाहिए कि कलरफुल हो, वाइब्रेंट हो. व्हेन द स्टूडेंट कम्स ही फील्स दैट ही इज़ receiving. There should be a lot of sharing as to what ideas students have in terms of learning spaces.
आज उनको मजा आनी चाहिए,
invigorating होना चाहिए. And if it can be co-created with the guidance and support of the students, then they will enjoy more.
True.
Because अभी तक जो हम लोग लैंडस्केप बनाते हैं, चाहे वो स्कूल सिस्टम का या एजुकेशनल प्लेटफॉर्म्स का, वो हम लोग सोचते हैं कि हमारे तरीके से जो बेस्ट है वो ही बेस्ट है. But if you are able to co-create along with the school children, along with the parents, then I think it will be much more happier in terms of how do you visualize.
सही बात है. एंड कहीं पे सर ऐसा होता है कि ये सब लर्निंग एनवायरनमेंट और ये सब क्रिएट करने के लिए probably like promoters like you think of money could be a constraint. ऐसा होता है?
Well, there are different types of school all over the country, and we are a very diverse country. I mean, there will be challenges because of technology. Now we know about AR, VR, and tomorrow metaverse will come in, and all those will also enhance the learning outcomes in terms of and the learning ecosystem, but everybody cannot afford it. But certain learnings can take place and innovative measures can be adopted to be able to put them in a certain platform so that you are able to take part of it and at least start moving around it.
Sir, our economy has been witnessing always a point-based mechanism, which is like the standard testing. You know, you appear for one exam, you get scores, and post on the scores, you go ahead in your life or in your academic journey. Is this something that you believe should continue? Any reforms suggested by you?
Well, presently the way that we are testing, which is standardized and which is the assessment pattern that we have, is the only way to test. But a lot of innovative practices have to be introduced because the government is also talking in the NEP of having a formative assessment, and assessment should happen very frequently because to learn something and to retrieve it after 6 months is not something is the best way to do it. True. And I personally feel that apart from just learning a subject or a topic or a content, we are also focusing on the 21st century skills, wherein you are testing whether the person is having certain skills, certain competencies, certain talents, whether he's able to collaborate and work together. Because once you go into the industry,
हाँ जी.
your skill sets which will be required is
True.
not the book knowledge that you gain in the school system.
Sir, हमेशा ये होता है, and I think so. I've been telling this and I've been witnessing this, saying we're preparing kids for future. That's what we say. So if it is maybe English literature or probably there is a science experiment, but we don't involve industry experts to come and witness and evaluate rather than having only the standardized way. So do you also think that there should be an involvement? Industry shouldn't come only at the higher education, but they should be coming to the school level.
Bhavin, I entirely agree with you. What we have started in our school is that every student should make his own portfolio.
Very good.
You don't have to make it once you are getting prepared or going into higher classes or into higher education. So if he starts building his portfolio and a culture that what he has done in any field, whether he has any interest in art, extracurricular activities, any other opportunity or any certificate that you have received, everything comes into that portfolio. And then the internship, if he is able to do in the higher classes with the industry, that again becomes something where he gets excited, he gets enthused, and he can choose his career path in future as to what really he wants to do. Because the exposure that this young student has, he will not have unless he has worked with the industry.
True.
And as you rightly said in your question, that we should have interaction with the industry.
Correct.
Whether it is the alumni is working in the
आज की
industry.
तारीख में अगर बच्चा वही काम नहीं कर पाए which an industry wants, and probably industry also has to take responsibility to come volunteer and also set the benchmarks. Correct? Because it has to be two-way. It can't be like only school is approaching, but I think so somewhere government associations and industry association should also, like a CSR activity, they should compulsion saying there has to be an industry interaction and evaluation. That's a...
I think that is not a challenge because a lot of people are keen to work with the colleges and schools also, and a lot of good schools have started this practice of bringing people from the industry, and they are very happy to talk to children.
Brilliant.
It
I
gives
think
you a
so.
lot
This
of
is-
satisfaction when you talk to children, tell them what the industry is looking like, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges they will be facing. And I think it is brilliant that if that sort of a bonding and interaction with the industry continues, and they also experience while going out to the industry and do a little bit of an internship, maybe even if they do a community service for 7 days.
Yeah,
They
that is
see the
helpful.
real Bharat.
Yeah.
Because we send our children to villages so that they understand what is the culture in our villages. We also try to take them to places where the students cannot afford education.
True.
And they have limitations. So they go there and teach there. So those are the things that are required to take a holistic education, make more meaningful for the child.
Sir, हम जब education की बात करते हैं, we talk of innovation. Do you think at say Anandram, Jaipuria, where you have chain of school, maybe one place you have done some innovative practice, can it be scaled to others or can it be duplicated to others?
Well, I feel innovation has to be a continuous process. And before I answer the question that you specifically asked, I would like to mention that innovation is happening all over the world. And one has to see it in the right context. What are the facilities that you have? What is the infrastructure that you have? What is the mindset of the people that are there in the teaching community? What the parents are expecting? So the context becomes very relevant. And to what extent you can adapt that particular innovation in the given set of things. And the third point that you said is how to scale it up. So we have large genre schools in our country, right from progressive schools to schools run by the government agencies and some of the schools in rural India or remote places. So every school has its different challenges.
Sir, बहुत सारे लोग बाहर जाते हैं and they say that we are going to bring in innovation. What's your reaction on that? ये क्या मतलब is it true that you go to Finland and can bring it over here and make it happen?
As I was saying, a lot of things can be learned, best practices can be learned, but everything that is relevant there or practiced there, it is not necessarily that once you apply here, it will be feasible. So we have to see in our own context whether it can be done or not. The quality of teachers that they have, the classrooms
sheer
sizes
size,
that they have,
yes.
the numbers that they have. In India, we have 25 crore students.
Correct.
Now, do we think that a country like India, which is of that magnitude and size, can adopt something which is there in a small country like Finland? The answer is no.
Absolutely.
So every country, every city, every village has their own challenges. There are different ways of innovating. So there's tremendous
मुझे तो कहीं लगता
opportunity.
है कि probably Finland should come here and check it out, saying what are the challenges that we are facing here, and Finland should be merged in India to face the challenges. So a very important question, as in education world, our mission statement had always been to build the pressure of public opinion to make education as the number one item on national agenda. But sir, unfortunately, since independence, we have seen countries like Korea, Japan, everywhere, the highest importance is given on education. But the government in India somehow is averse largely with private education, and they are not improving their government education. What's your reaction on government?
Well, I think in the last 10 years, a lot of changes have taken place, both in the terms of mindset as far as the government is concerned, and the role of private education. Presently, as we all know, that among the 15 lakh schools which are prevalent in India, 68% are government owned, and the participation of private schools is going or increasing year to year.
Yes.
Which is now 32%, and the number of students would be close to 50%. So a greater engagement with the government in terms of the funding that is required. As per the UNDP Sustainable Development Goals, the amount of money that is required in the stream of education for India by 2030 will be close to $175 billion per year.
True.
While the funding which the government is able to do is close to only $75 billion.
Yeah, they haven't matched still 6.5% investment in the
As
GDP.
you rightly said, 6% or 6.5% that is required for their contribution to education because of constraint of resources, and that would mean more participation of the private institutions to come up, and for that an ecosystem has to be created by the government wherein more liberalization should be there, more patient capital which is there globally can come into this area.
True.
While certain restrictions will be there because it is a sector which has been regulated.
Yes.
But the point
To me,
is,
it's over-regulated.
But the point is, if certain understanding in terms of transparency, in terms of liberalization can be done, lot more people will like to come into this space.
But do you think, sir, tomorrow, if you approach government and you tell government, hey, look, I'm going to start 500 schools, right? And I'm going to build the index of the human development. Do you think government is open to listen to you, going to empower you? What has been largely your interaction when you deal with the political crowd? Do you think that they are coming forward and helping you?
Well, I think the government is very keen that we should create institutions of excellence. We are seeing that in the higher education space. Similarly, in the school education, they are also feeling that ultimately if India wants to become a wish guru, and we are sending 13 lakh students outside for higher education, and now some of the students are also going for school education outside
Yes.
India. Why can't the reverse thing happen? So we want people to come to India rather than people going. So there has to be more interest in terms of investment, but for that regulation, transparency and other things will have to change.
See, frankly, sir, to me, people who are on the chair, first of all, they are not from education. So rightly, people like you should be on the chair. You should be volunteering and they should be collaborating with you for your ideas because you have proven it, correct? And the most important part is the school education is different than the higher education. In fact, you are preparing the base of the future of the child and base of the economy. And I think so that has to be, according to me, and I think so this is what the larger voice is, they should be giving you complete independence because you know your job well, rather than someone who wouldn't have had any experience of running an education institute.
Well, I think the mind of the government is changing because they have seen that there have been a lot of gaps in terms of the learning outcomes in government schools. And when we talk to various state governments, they are very keen that there should be a PPP mode between the private and public enterprises to be able to handhold them, both in terms of infrastructure, in terms of academics and overall teachers and learning space. So we are engaging with the different, because being a subject which is both between the state and the central,
हम वहीं पे पिस गए
so
हैं.
we'll have to work along with the state government, and the role of FICCI Arise is also that we work also actively with the state governments, whether it is in terms of regulations, of fees, and they have to see a larger aspect. But
True.
definitely they want to give flexibility and autonomy to a certain extent. But I feel that the mindset is definitely
Changing. You
something
feel
which is positive.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I think so. The golden years have to be back, and hopefully government listens to you, listens to our conversation, and something good comes out of it. So new education policy जो 2020 में बाहर आई है, do you think it's going to match up with the lost pace that India had? And do you think this is going to sustain Indian education for next 100 years?
well, I think the new education policy will be a game changer. It is a very positive development, and the policy has come almost after 34 years.
Yes.
Now the point is how well and how fast it can be implemented.
Sir, सब जगह पे यही होता है.
Implementation
पे
becomes
ही.
the key. But some of the salient features which can really transform education, which I would like to highlight. Number one, I felt that the early childhood care
हाँ जी.
was one area that was not being paid as much attention as it desired.
Yes.
Because the brain of a child up to 6 years grows by 85%. And if you don't focus on the basic foundational learning of the child, then subsequently the structure that will be created or the learning that will happen will not be that effective.
True.
So this has become sharper focus as far as early childhood care is concerned, which is a very significant step which has been taken.
नहीं सर, उसमें थोड़ा योगदान हमारा भी था that we've been the only media who've been pressurizing on the early childhood education and care. और तब जाके देखिए 34 साल के बाद कुछ inclusion आया है.
I am glad. I mean, a lot of people have been talking, and EducationWorld has also been promoting this. Now the second is the assessments or the changes that have happened, that the system would be 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. Now that again brings a lot of focus into foundation learning, into the middle school education and the senior education. And it will bring about a cultural change in terms of assessments that were happening. Because earlier the examination used to happen in 10th and 12th, and whatever has been learning or whichever a student was understanding, we were not able to capture it from a perspective of the various respective boards that were there. So that is another major area.
Yeah, sir. इसमें क्या होता है? Always, जो जैसे आपने बताया, always we have been divided between state and the center, and this has been our track record that no policy we have been implementing at the spirit, right? I mean, there is talkings that are there is paper that has come out, but there is always tug of war. जैसे Karnataka announced saying 6 years onwards you can admit the child for grade 1, and the other state has some other policy. How do you really think that इतने सारे जो policy matters हैं, if states are not going to come together, भारत में एक तरीके से विकास होगा कैसे?
No, by and large, most of the people are in agreement as far as the policy is concerned. Every state government, because they belong to different political parties, will have their own agenda. But I don't think there is many major disagreement with regard to the policy and the intent as far as the various state governments are concerned.
Sir, एक point है language का जहाँ पे बहुत disagreement है. South versus North में बहुत divide हो रहा है.
I know, but it is important that people should also learn their local languages, which is important, and government, the NEP is also talking about it. But coming back to your question, I felt that there is a lot of more flexibility in terms of working. Earlier, the focus was only on academics. Now, equal focus is being given to extracurricular activities. Likewise,
skills, vocation.
The major area which was a drag was the focus on skill development. We have seen that in the beginning, when in the school system, we have almost like 97 to 98% enrollment.
Wow.
While it comes to class 12, that it goes down to 56%. So a lot of students are not able to complete their studies. Now there has to be some avenue and opportunity for these students to do vocational training. And there are so many different avenues which have opened up. And if those are harnessed or channelized in the proper way, depending upon the interest of the child, that can be a game setter. And even today, I was reading in the newspaper that in different segments, whether it is up to class 3 or class 5 or class 8, all the credits will be given for the different
there is a lot of good
things.
credit mechanism, transfer of credit mechanism.
Transfer of credit mechanism is there, which will help them to get admissions after they finished their schooling.
True.
And then there's a large focus on teacher training and the professional development of the teachers that we talked about.
Yes.
Because that was a major area for gap.
Right.
And we all know how these teacher training academies were
It is
being
getting
run.
more and more attention.
So more and more attention is required, and we require definitely the brilliant of teacher. If we want 21st century skills to be imparted, we want 21st century teachers to be also there.
Or in a way, NEP to be implemented, you also need good teachers, correct? Because eventually they are the only vehicles who are going to make this happen.
It has to be on a mission mode.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a very good clue that sir has given. We have to take this as a mission, and NEP 2020, which is a very good document in spirit, in action, has to be implemented by all the stakeholders. It's not only the government, but I think so all the stakeholders, which are educators, parents and students, need to make it mission to make it happen. So you have been a very active person in the professional life, Education Institute, you're scaling. You have so many, I mean, you're running such a busy schedule. Sir, how do you balance your life? How do you create some lighter moment? कुछ तो होगा जो आपको ये drive देता है.
Bhavin, I'll answer this in two parts. One is that education doesn't look to me as if I'm doing something because I want to do good for the society. And when I see my children, when I meet them outside the school or my alumni who have been there, and the amount of respect that they have for the family or for the school, that brings so much of happiness to me personally.
That gives you energy.
That gives me a new drive, a new dimension, a new energy. So that is the purpose for me is very different. As far as the other part is concerned, I like to devote, now I'm 65 years old, so I want to devote more time with the family, and I have fortunately 3 granddaughters and 1 grandson, and I love playing with them, enjoying and relaxing with them. So that is the best moment that we have. The other thing during COVID, something which I was passionate about and I could not do, is that I've gone back to golf.
Wow.
Because earlier I used to be a golfer, but because of the pressure of work for the last 30 years, I have not been on to playing golf. But I thought in my lighter moments, and I have to prepare myself. So golf I'm passionate about. In my younger days, I was also very fond of painting.
Wow.
So probably someday I will try to do some more of art, more of painting, which is something close to my heart.
चलिए सर, एक बार तो ये भी हो गया कि probably in any of your schools of Anandram, Jaipuria, सर एक golf का मैदान भी कर दीजिएगा अभी. So at least you can go and practice with the kids.
No, I would love to do that because the golf requires a lot of space. But definitely now...
But it's also a good leadership game.
I know, but to maintain a golf course in a school is a challenge. But now within the golf, you have various gadgets that you can put in the school. So that the basic components of golf can be taught. But we are focusing on sports because the holistic development, and more so that we are focusing on health and hygiene of the student, and makes them more grounded. If you are into sports, if you are working in teams, collaborating, and team sports is something which is really something the student should practice.
So that's what we had Shri Shishir Jaipuria, chairman of St. Anandram Jaipuria Group of Schools, talking to us unplugged, candid and direct.
Thank you.
I, Bhavin Shah, going to be... Okay. Good. Retake. See you soon.